Hey, everybody, I'm your host, Mike Downer, and thanks for joining us on the Concrete Blueprint. I'm here today joined by Andrew Quick, the owner, CEO, and probably the janitor of Quick Concrete Solutions. How are we doing today, Andrew?
Mr. Downer, I'm doing wonderful, man. How are you doing today?
I couldn't be happier if I were twins.
I
Always
love
a good day when I get to talk to you. So,
it.
today's going to be kind of fun. We're going to talk about why concrete driveways crack in Iowa. I think you've probably experienced this once or twice in your career.
Oh yeah. No, it's everywhere, man. It's literally the arch enemy of concrete is cracking. It's there. It's literally everywhere.
It is, and so we're going to talk about why that happens, how to prevent it, and what to do after that does happen. So the big
Yep.
question is, why do driveways crack in Iowa, and what kind of causes that, and how to prevent the concrete from cracking. So if you want to give us a quick overview, and then we'll kind of dive into each one of those individually.
Well, yeah, absolutely. So, here in central Iowa, we've got a special weather system. Than most places in the rest of the U.S. We've got this huge freeze thaw cycle that happens. That's one of our big things that we see when cracks are coming pronounced. They're growing, they're getting bigger, there's structural failures, etc. Here in Central Iowa, Quick Concrete Solutions sees cracking problems in every single week that we're inspecting projects. The number one issue that we see is stuff that homeowners never think of. Is simple stuff like too much water was added to the concrete mix. There's shrinkage cracks. There's a number of different series of things that cause this cracking. So in generality, almost guaranteed, concrete does two things: it gets hard and it does crack. There's special things we can do to kind of go above and beyond to prevent those cracks, but that's kind of the written rule of concrete. It gets hard and it does crack.
Yeah, that's gonna make sense. So I know that we're gonna dive into this one a little bit deeper because from everything that I know, and you know a billion times more than me, the freeze thaw cycle, and this is a very familiar term to people. How does Iowa's freeze thaw cycle destroy weak concrete from the inside out?
Yes, very good question. So again, at Quick Concrete Solutions, in Milwaukee, we always say, hey, concrete doesn't crack because of bad luck. It cracks because there's something wrong underneath of it or within it. Those are the main things. Now, freeze thaw cycles in particular is basically when temperatures drop below 32 degrees, and the moisture that's actually stuck in the concrete through precipitation, through water getting underneath the concrete, multiple avenues here of water basically soaking into that concrete, it starts to freeze. So when that freeze thaw cycle happens, you literally have this expansion and contraction of the concrete itself, where these pores are moving in numerous ways. Hence, a hard material like that, it's got to do something, right? It's got to give
Right.
somewhere. So it finds the least path of resistance, and that's typically where you see your cracks. Now, there's some things we'll do to prevent that. Number one, that's most common, everybody knows of, is doing control joints, saw cutting in control joints after we pour these driveways. But again, it's not a perfect theory. Nobody in the world has this proper to 100% profile. So, but in Iowa, yeah, we see it just a ton here.
Maybe as soon as they start making driveways out of gravel again, then you won't have to worry about cracks.
I hope not.
Yeah, that's never gonna happen. I won't even drive my car in gravel. So getting down to the root of the problem, and I know this one is extremely important. And again, I know very little, but I do know that soil preparation. So why is poor soil preparation often the hidden cause of concrete problems that homeowners never see?
Yeah, great question. So soil preparation, we've discussed this on previous episodes as well in a different format. But soil preparation is literally everything for concrete. So There's a series of things that happen. So again, when we talk about that moisture going underneath the concrete and physically moving the ground and causing the concrete to heave and contract and do all those things, getting properly compacted soil and proper soil that's not going to hold that moisture is absolutely imperative. And then a lot of, in almost all scenarios, we're always putting in rock base as well. And what that does is it kind of allows there to be a barrier between your concrete and your actual soil, to where it's not heaving, it's draining. It's getting an opportunity to escape and get away from that concrete. So soil preparation to me is everything. It's just, again, like building a house. You wouldn't build a house on a bad foundation, right? So
Right.
why build your patio, sidewalks, driveways, streets, you name it, parking lots, any of that stuff on nothing but a good, properly suitable soil, suitable aggregate base with your proper concrete on top.
Perfect. That makes sense. So what happens to concrete when the ground underneath it shifts because of improper compaction?
Yeah. So when all that moisture gets caught and trapped in that soil, it is literally into one thing that's also big to note in this freeze thaw cycle is in Iowa, we've got a lot of different types of soil, and different variations of sub base. So, I mean, you've got regular clay, you've got expansive clays, you got, topsoil, et cetera. So understanding what it is that you're working with and what's going to hold the moisture and what's going to allow the moisture to drain is imperative. So, we also look at those soil types when we're pouring a new driveway or tearing out and replacing a new driveway or a parking lot, whatever that may be, making sure we got the best profile of soil and we're doing proctor tests, et cetera, to ensure that everything is as perfect as it can be for Iowa conditions for that freeze thaw cycle.
No, that makes complete sense because as you know better than I do, that clay and the different types of clay that we have here in Iowa, because I mean, most builders nowadays, and it's just good. I mean, it's smart. They're pulling all that good topsoil off of there, selling it to the sod companies, and then you're left with clay. And knowing what you're dealing with underneath is imperative.
Absolutely, you couldn't be more correct, Mike. Absolutely, that's a big business for builders. Yeah, we'll leave it at that.
Yeah, well, we'll just leave it at that. I was just saying, I didn't say it was right or wrong. I just said that just knowing what you're dealing with and how thick of a layer of topsoil they actually left is very smart and something that you at Quick Concrete take the time to assess.
Absolutely, 100%, Mike. You got it, man.
So, how does bad drainage and water pooling damage concrete?
Yeah, so bad drainage, water pooling, anything of the nature, it can go on both sides. So whether it be on top of the concrete or below the concrete, end of the day, concrete is porous. In Iowa, again, when we're doing exterior concretes in particular, we're making sure we have proper air and moisture and all those things added to that concrete. That air entrainment especially is very very key. Concrete is porous, and when water pools, it tends to saturate into the concrete slowly over time. And then also when it goes underneath the concrete and you've got bad drainage and water's being forced underneath that concrete, all you're doing is feeding the beast being the freeze thaw cycle, where you're going from cold temperatures, you got this, contraction of soils to all of a sudden this really, you get these warm temps and everything starts expanding again and pushing and heaving, concrete to where you've literally got, it doesn't matter if it's a driveway, it doesn't matter what it is. The earth can move enough with all that moisture trapped to literally break almost anything concrete related, whether it's 6 inches or 12 inches, it doesn't matter. The force of the earth, you can't beat it. It's Mother Nature. So what we do is, again, just make sure we got proper subgrade prep, and ensure we do have proper drainage, coming off those slabs, whatever it may be. And also underground, storage solutions as well, whether it be on site or if it goes into a certain system or whatever for drainage. Absolutely paramount. Absolutely paramount.
Yeah, the more I learn about this and the science and math that goes behind You think you just open up a bag of concrete, mix it up with some water, and throw it down and smooth it out. That's not even close.
No, unfortunately, it's not that easy.
So,
That's
um, it,
yeah. Unfortunately, there's still contractors that are in the same belief as you, Mike. But yeah,
yeah. So,
we're definitely chasing those. We're usually following those guys around with our trucks, fixing their issues.
so that leads me to my next question for you. I
Yes.
know everybody wants to save a buck.
Yep.
Everybody's frugal, and I understand that.
Absolutely.
But you have to explain and let everybody know, why do low quality or generic concrete mixes fail during Iowa winters?
Yeah, great question. Really good question. I like this one. So, um, concrete is not like concrete's not. There's not one design mix. There's dozens and dozens of design mixes in concrete. So, you know, it's one of those. You know, until you start getting into the nerdy stuff and understanding all these different design mixes, you think, okay, I ordered a 4,000 psi mix for this sidewalk, so maybe I'll do that for my parking lot. Probably not a good idea. So with low quality or generic mixes, as we're talking, or if it's like a
Yep.
bag mix, etc., there's certain things that we want to achieve. And number one thing is to understand what that concrete's going to be used for. What are we putting on top of it? What's its intended use, practical use? Also, what kind of environments are we in? Are we in really wet environments where we know we're going to have a lot of freeze-thaw cycles? Do we got really good watershed? Understanding all these things, and then coming down to it and getting into understanding proper PSI mix. So your average concrete for like footings and stuff starts right around 3,000 psi. Your average daily mix you see on most sidewalks, etc., is around 4,000 psi. And then once you start getting into city and state stuff, you're looking closer to the 5,000 plus psi concrete mixes, all the way up to you can get 10,000 psi mix, which is going to be you're building something absolutely astronomical. But they exist. So there's concrete for everything. But point being is you don't want to take a 3,000 mix and put that in a driveway where you've got this freeze thaw cycle happening. You're parking a lot of heavy stuff on it, and there's going to be ground movement. You're literally setting yourself up for failure. And
Yep.
two, the big thing, regardless of what quality mix that you have, the biggest thing that is absolutely paramount is that it's properly poured. So what we see a lot, we're driving through job sites all the time, particularly in new houses. We see it where these concrete guys are coming in and they're pouring these, usually a 4,000 mix. So it's a pretty generic standard mix. And what they'll do is they'll actually add 20 to 30, maybe 40 gallons of water to this mix to get it to be very, basically to make it self-leveling almost. So what this does is you're adding all this water to this concrete, and even as a generic or a proper higher value mix, you're now taking it from like a 4,000 or 5,000 psi mix down to maybe a 2,000 psi mix or less, because you're basically diluting all the ingredients within that mix that make it proper. But it makes it easier to spread, right? It makes it easier on the guys. Maybe it's a hot day, whatever. But unfortunately, customers, clients, they don't get to see that, and they don't usually understand that, even if they did get to see it. And that's where we end up with destroyed driveways, where sprawling, cracking, all the number of other things that we find issues with consistently. It's very, very habitually done everywhere. And then in the state of Iowa with our freeze thaw cycles, that water, all that extra water that they're adding to that concrete, is going to take that much longer for that to evaporate. And then that freeze thaw cycle, once you're doing it like first part of the spring, you're likely going to have all that water that's inside that concrete go through that freeze thaw and then cause all those extra cracks and the spalling and all that stuff, just because it's got that water stuck in it. It's been oversaturated. So
yeah, that makes sense. So let's move on to the next level of this. We're kind of building
Yeah.
a driveway from the ground down or from the top down. So, what is the rebar problem most contractors ignore when reinforcing concrete?
Yes, yeah, another really, really good question. So, with concrete itself, again, it's understanding application and placement of rebar and how much rebar to put in. So, there's different sizes of rebar. You know, your typical driveways, you're seeing a number 4 or number 5, basically half inch up to 5/8 inch rebar being placed. That's good. That's a good thing. Unfortunately, when a lot of this rebar is placed in the concrete, the rebar is set on the ground to where that rebar actually does the concrete no good. So, what a lot of contractors will do is they say they'll pull the rebar up into the concrete and then it'll just stay. Well, that rebar, whether it be steel or fiberglass, is going to work its way back down to the bottom of the ground, where again, it's doing no good unless it's sitting in the middle of the concrete where its intended use is for. That's where it helps with expansion and contraction and controlling those cracks in the middle of the concrete. But once you put that rebar at the bottom, it has no effect whatsoever on how that concrete expands or contracts, which is a major failure by a majority of just contractors pouring concrete out there. Best example is you look at anything that's poured on the interstates or anything in city limits and stuff that's controlled by city state. Everything has to be up on rebar chairs. Everything has to be, set up in a way that it can't go to the ground. It stays dead center in the middle of the concrete. And that's like your rebar dowels and stuff too that go into the concrete and adjoining panels and whatnot, depending on the application. You'll best example, you go down the interstate and you see all this steel sitting up on these, what looks like cages.
Yes.
That's done by design. It's to ensure that rebar is perfectly placed, regardless if the guys step on that, it's not going to fall. Like it's structurally sound to withstand the pressure of the concrete coming down, gravity itself, guys stepping over top of it, on top of it, etc. And then just, properly pouring the concrete. In most of those situations, you got to use a pump truck. You can't be driving over top of that rebar, again, where you're not only affecting the integrity of the rebar, but you're also pushing that rebar back down to the ground and disturbing the movement of it. So very, very important issue. Unfortunately, it's underlooked very often. We find in a lot of our new residential homes, a lot of our tile replacement stuff in general. We always take pictures and send it to the homeowners, and we'll find, bottom of the slab is my hand, and you'll literally see the rebar sitting like this at the bottom of the slab, stuck to the bottom. And that's a no-go. That's a complete failure on the contractor's part. And then again, the homeowner ends up paying somebody like me, a bunch of money to come fix it and redo it again, but do it properly.
Right.
So kind of goes into our whole theory, cry once, get it done right, pay the extra buck, do things properly.
I agree 100%. The older I get, the more I learn that. The more I've tried to cut corners, and that's not the way life works. So I mean, it can work that way, but you're just out a lot more money. So,
we've all done it at some point in our lives, because there is certain scenarios where people don't care. Maybe they're selling a house, they just want to get out of it, make it look pretty, and leave. Again, certain client and customer for everybody.
And I understand that, but and I'm kind of going off on a little bit of a tangent here, but just for anybody who's thinking about that, the one thing that I do know from being a homeowner is I do see where you could think aesthetically, I can get out of this thing for $5,000 rather than going and paying Andrew 10. I'm just using stupid round numbers. I'm not saying that's your prices, but your brain is saying that. Yep. But in the long run, if you're smart enough, you will tell your realtor, I spent this money. Here is my receipt. The reason why it looks so great, but could you bring this up in the closing that this is a quote unquote $10,000 driveway, not a $3,000 driveway.
Structurally sound.
You can get your money back, because that person's going to go, okay, I'll pay a little bit extra because I know I don't have to replace it.
And absolutely,
that's kind of my little soapbox in helping you out, going, yeah, it's gonna stick it in your wallet a little bit right in the beginning, but you're gonna get it back. So just because you're selling your house is no reason to chintz out on it. You'll get it all back and maybe more.
Amen. And here's the beautiful thing: at Quick Concrete Solutions here in Waukee, we absolutely pride ourselves when customers allow us to do kind of what we want to do in terms of the level of concrete and the proper processes, et cetera. We do offer warranties on our concrete. Again, pending a few factors, up to 5 years. And I personally don't know any other concrete company in Iowa that offers any warranty, let alone a 5-year warranty on their product. It's just because we've learned the science, the proper application, how to do it. We've got a phenomenal team that is actually physically pouring it every day. And we have all those QC things, those quality control items in place that give us that confidence that we know we can offer that extra added value. And if you sell that house and something, for whatever reason goes wrong, that falls within that warranty clout, like it's, guess what? That's passed on. As long as there's
so the warranty is transferable.
Warranty is transferable. Absolutely.
Perfect.
Absolutely.
See that right there adds the value because the warranty is worth its weight in gold. And I know you guys will always stand behind it. So let's move on from that. So what's the difference between settlement cracking, structural cracking, and cosmetic cracking?
Yeah, so fairly simple differentiation. So settlement cracking, again, is where we've got, poor, unsuitable soils that this concrete was placed on, and or if it was, recently tampered with the dirt itself, maybe it was dug up and, new foundation was put in, they just pushed the dirt back over top and poured on top of that dirt. Well, that dirt hasn't had a chance to actually settle down and get to where it's supposed to be properly compacted. And what that does is it puts a lot of pressure on the concrete. And at some point, wherever it is in the driveway, again, it's going to find the easiest place, which hopefully is where those control joints are cut in the driveway. Again, that's what's designed to do, is to crack at the least, point of impact. So those control joints are kind of the weakest spots, if you will, of the driveway. Again, it doesn't always work that way, but that would be considered like a settlement cracking. Now, when you're talking about structural cracking, now you're talking about the actual physical driveway itself, where a variety of things can come into place, whether it be that the driveway was misused or whatever the concrete pad, maybe it was a parking lot, maybe it was a street, whatever it may be, maybe it was overloaded. So now you have, again, instead of this pressure, just this underlying pressure coming down, you have a structural force pushing down on that concrete, and maybe it wasn't designed for whatever the application was. And or again, going with freeze-thaw cycles, again, that's still messes with the structural integrity of the concrete. So again, getting that, all those other things that we've talked about, the soils and everything else proper, can structurally crack that, can push up and obviously push up and down on that concrete. And then as it settles again, you got cracking. So, and then you're kind of cosmetic cracking. So this is the one that we at Quick Concrete Solutions call it's going to happen. It's almost guaranteed likely to happen. This is something that, again, like for instance, be transparent, like our warranty is not going to cover a cosmetic crack.
What is a cosmetic crack?
Correct. Yep. A cosmetic crack. Cosmetic crack is simply where the concrete itself has gotten hardened and has just found a pressure point that it didn't like. And there's nobody in the world that can control that. If you use a 10,000 PSI concrete and did all these other various things, you can do a lot of things to really go overboard to keep it from cracking. But end of the day, again, concrete's known to do two things. It's going to get hard and eventually it will crack somewhere. So that cosmetic crack is literally a controlled crack in the concrete, whether it be surface level or even if it's, over a period of years has gone all the way through the depth of the concrete. But then that rebar or that structural fiber or numerous of things that we can put in place controls that crack and it stays a hairline crack. So, if that thing is a hairline crack and the driveway isn't shifting up or down on one side or the other of that crack, or it's not pulling apart from that crack, that's considered cosmetic. But once it starts pulling away, or if it heavily shifts one way or the other, that's now a structural failure. So now something has gone severely wrong with that driveway, either or the placement of it, the structural integrity of it, the misuse of it, all things that come into play when you're starting to look back at the settlement and the structural cracking. So again, cosmetic cracks, nothing to worry about, as long as it was poured properly.
Perfect. Awesome answer to that question. So we'll kind of wind this one up. We're hitting our time here. So I could talk to you all day, but let's just go over the last subject that I have to ask you about is what are the 5 most common causes of driveway cracking in Central Iowa?
Yeah. Yep. Good question, Mike. So there's a numerous things that come into play. You've got overloading. Again, we kind of talked about putting too much weight on the concrete to a point where it's structurally failing and cracking. You've got temperature fluctuations where you get if there's not proper air entrainment, et cetera, in that concrete, those temperature fluctuations can also cause crack. It causes stress on the concrete. You can have shifting or poorly subgraded, shifting or poorly compacted subgrade. Again, not making sure you got proper soils, and then also your rock and stuff in there. If you're not doing that, that can also cause cracking. Too much water in the concrete mix is another big one. Again, you're taking the structural integrity out of that concrete. Unfortunately, we get a lot of guys. Again, we see that as one of the most common things, but that also then can cause spalling, et cetera. So, and then shrinkage cracks, just drying shrinkage cracks. The water can evaporate from that concrete. If it evaporates at too rapid of a pace, then that can cause a major issue as well. So concrete needs kind of the perfect environment, if you will. If you can pour concrete every day, at say 65 degrees, 70 degrees, that's kind of
20% humidity outside.
Yeah. I mean, we could put the blue skies and birds chirping, all that good stuff. But there's kind of the perfect environment for it. But that's also the beautiful thing at Quick Concrete Solutions. We look at the weather, we realize that we're not in control of it. We got to work around it, and we still have to get a superior product to our customers. And by knowing our design mixes and using the proper additives to our concrete, and then also using the proper sealants and cures and other additives that we can put on afterwards too, we can control some of that stuff, which allows us, again, a superior product where we don't have water evaporation at a high rate. We can still pour at 90 degrees. We can still pour concrete at 100 degrees. Now, if it's 100 degrees and 30-mile-an-hour winds, we're probably going to say, hey, no thanks. We'll see you another day. Doing that's about the same as pouring in the middle of a rainstorm. About the same damage would happen. You have to completely redo all of it. But point being, yes, we take the time to not just understand the proper production of the mix and how to provide the right application for the right customer, et cetera. We also know in the field how to properly lay that concrete, order it, et cetera. So start to finish, get a successful product, and make our clients happy.
Perfect.
Yeah.
All right. So we've gone through all the different reasons. I think next time we just talk about what to do and what not to do on our next one. How's that sound? Maybe we can help people at least preserve them as long as possible.
That sounds good, Mike. I like it. I like that.
All right, buddy. I'll talk to you next time. Thanks a lot, Andrew.
Thanks, Mike.
Thanks for joining us on the Concrete Blueprint.